Guys, just a quick intro. So we're going to be doing this weekly, fortnightly maybe,
Yeah, something like that, like a chain.
where we
a
have
regular
different guest speakers to discuss everything blockchain, everything crypto. And for our title for the first episode of this podcast, first of many I hope. ايش التايتل مصري يعني ايش بدنا نحكي اليوم؟
chain. Why should Jordan push to become a regional crypto hub, and what can be done to achieve that?
Definitely. So the industry really is maturing.
It's mature. It's professional now. It really is, and the theme really that I've been seeing is that we're being left behind here.
Definitely.
I'm a Jordanian lawyer.
Did you expect that back in 2017, 2014?
No, I didn't. I thought it was a movement that would be very, very global in nature, and that no one would be left behind. But now I see that the risk is that some people will be left behind if they don't
Definitely.
take action. Yeah.
So, my first exposure was end of 2013, early 2014. A friend of mine called me from England and said, you can make free money online. I was like, okay, that's something I'd do. وسألته كيف, and he told me about farming rather than mining. Anyways, I've come a long way since the whole industry has gone a long way since 2013, 14. I transitioned into trading crypto in 2015 full time. I found that my experience in financial markets and my degree in finance helped me take advantage of a very mature market.
Of course,
back
especially
then.
at the time. Maybe.
Definitely. أنا هلا عم بحكي أكتر trading wise. It was much easier to trade crypto back then. Anyways, moving on, 2015 full time, 2017, 18 we both started taking it more seriously. عملنا a leveraged derivative, crypto derivative trading platform. And we issued our own crypto, our own Bitcoin, as we tell the layman. وبعدين ب 2020 actually I started pursuing my postgraduate degree in blockchain and digital currencies. It was a good decision. It was a great decision. We're in the right industry at the right time. I'm very happy with the decision, and I should be done with it in a couple of months. خلاص. Home run now.
Time flies.
Home run,
Time
baby.
flies.
Definitely. طيب guys, اليوم بعد هذا الانترودكشن اللي كان المفروض شوي أسرع من هيك it took a while. Our topic is why should Jordan push to become a regional crypto hub, and what can be done to achieve that. What do you think are the biggest barriers to regulating crypto in Jordan and blockchain? على فكرة هو غلط احنا نستعمل crypto blockchain interchangeably, but we're gonna be do that for the sake of this podcast.
Yeah. Let's not go into the يعني نقعد نفصفص ب
Definitely. So back to our topic. What do you think is the biggest barriers, or are the biggest barriers to regulating crypto in Jordan?
I think the biggest barrier.
Actually, since you're in the legal industry, what's usually the biggest barrier to regulating anything?
Understanding.
I agree.
فهم.
So it's misinformation.
Oh yes.
And a lack of knowledge. I think misinformation is more dangerous than a lack of knowledge entirely.
It's worse.
But definitely it comes down to misinformation and understanding. You know, a lot of people think that crypto is revolutionary. It's the tech cryptocurrencies are built on, which is blockchain tech or DLT, distributed ledger technology. That's the revolutionary aspect. But in terms of money being digital, that's nothing new. Commercial banks have had their money digital in the form of reserves with the national central banks for the past few decades. Retail has been increasingly using digital money. أنا بستعمل app online banking. We transfer money to each other
online,
digitally all the time. Definitely. And we're seeing this big shift. COVID definitely pushed in that direction.
صح.
بس حتى قبل كوفيد يعني remember 2019 2018 we went to London.
Cashless.
واحنا مكيفين حالنا. انا كل ما اسافر بعمل ربطة cash is king. That's not the case anymore. I mean a few family owned cafes, bars, even the international chains, Starbucks to name one of them, they don't accept cash anymore. دخلت انا طلبت القهوة تاعتي, I gave him like 10 quid and he was like, oh sorry, no cash. So the shift towards the point we're trying to make, or I'm trying to make, I don't know if you agree with me, but the point I'm trying to make is that money being in digital form is nothing new.
No, not at all.
It's been happening commercially for decades, and from the retail side, we're seeing an increasingly accelerating shift towards digital cash.
I think any educated discussion on digital cash was put to rest on whether or not digital cash is the now and the future back when PayPal became, يعني, way before that in my opinion. But when PayPal became a giant,
definitely.
That's when everyone would be like, خلاص, okay, digital cash is a thing, because who doesn't buy
fintech
stuff
is here
online?
to stay.
Absolutely.
كمان شغلة actually بدي أحكي فيها digital currencies. Digital currency, guys, by the way, is an umbrella term for digital money. Whether you use PayPal, Venmo, online banking, regardless, whatever you use, it's digital currency is an umbrella term for currency that isn't physical. احنا when we for the purpose of our or in our context, we use digital currencies interchangeably with cryptocurrencies. Point being, all cryptocurrencies are digital, not all digital currencies are crypto. Anyways, moving on. على فكرة, you know something, another thing that since we were talking about cryptocurrencies and digital money or digital money not being revolutionary, proponents of legalizing Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, they use a very nice example that I think is very interesting. Since blockchain tech is built on cryptography, which has been around and regulated since the 40s, and nominal ledger, which has been an accounting discipline since 1494 is the correct date, and it's been regulated, of course. في accounting standards, في taxation, في proponents of blockchain and crypto, back when it was first being regulated in 2017, 16, 15 in the States and China, they'd use this example. بيحكوا إذا الكرسي مصنوع من خشب ومسامير، ليش مش قابل لي استعمل بلوكتشين المستعملة والكرسي ليجل؟ ليش مش قابل لي استعمل بلوكتشين؟ لأنه بلوكتشين مبني على nominal ledger and cryptography, which are both separately regulated.
Absolutely.
So I thought that's an interesting topic. The question that begs itself right now is, what should Jordan do? And the way I see it, we have 2 or 3 main routes. The first route would be an outright ban. The next one would be, I think, which is the case in Jordan. هلا أظن إحنا بالأردن we have the Wild West. It's ممنوع بس بصير بس هو ممنوع. Like, do it if you want to, but it's illegal to do it.
So I wouldn't call it illegal. It's just.
But we won't let you do it.
It's not really allowed.
Exactly. So that's the other route, which is outright ban the Wild West. زي بالأردن. أو we can take the Malta route.
Yes.
So embrace it, encourage it, outright regulate it.
Get ahead of it. Reap all the rewards.
يعني I think it's pretty obvious that we're both.
Yes, we're biased proponents.
I don't want to say, I wasn't going to use biased, but maybe a part of that is because I am biased. Regardless. اسمع. احنا at least we believe, our personal opinion is that Jordan should regulate it.
I definitely do believe that, but when you pitched at least the idea of the topic of this talk to me, and you said what can be done to achieve, and you kind of qualified that with the original part of the topic, which is Why should we become a hub? That's why I'm biased, because I prepared for example, for this talk with the information that I have and from my experience. And every reason I came up with for why Jordan should be, or why any country in the world should be, because we're Jordanians and we're talking about Jordan.
لا احنا هدفنا بالاخر as you will see through this talk is to reignite, reinvigorate and improve the Jordanian economy.
بالضبط. احنا عم نحكي عن هون. And it's all positives that outweigh the cons, and I'm not talking about private interests.
I like what you said, because cons, there's definitely limitations and disadvantages to cryptocurrencies, and I believe through regulation you can have the best of
كما
both
هو
worlds.
الأمر.
I believe the first thing we mentioned was that one of the biggest barriers to regulating or adopting any innovation, any disruptive technology is a lack of information. Recently ما بعرف إذا قريت أو سمعت عنها البنك المركزي طلع sort of a guidance paper on cryptocurrencies back in March 2020.
Yes.
You know what surprised me, and we're going to get into this in more detail since you've read up, but you know what really surprised me? بتبلش الورقة بالضبط أول إشي بيقولوه هو إنه البنك المركزي الأردني من 2014 وقف التعاملات بالكريبتوكرنسيز because 1, 2, 3 they have the rationale which I disagree with personally. Regardless, that's besides the point. احنا وقفنا التعامل بالبيتكوين والكريبتوكرنسيز من 2014 ولليوم موقفينها تماشيا مع ايش باقي السنترال بانكس بالعالم عملوا. It's يعني we're going to address this in more detail. The SEC defines miners. It defines mining as an activity. It sets a very thorough regulatory framework of what they can do and can't do. The IRS في taxation framework كامل للماينرز لحالهم, للتريدرز لحالهم.
هي كمان actual cryptocurrency treatment.
Yeah, definitely. So point being, again, misinformation is one of the biggest barriers to adopting anything.
I will comment just on that, because hats off to the central bank والقائمين بقسم الدراسات على أنهم
يعني it's definitely impressive that cryptocurrencies and blockchain is on their agenda.
Absolutely, that it's on the radar.
So hats off to that.
100%. They took the time to conduct a thorough study and assessment. And in terms of misinformation, yes, without getting into the nitty-gritty of it, in terms of exactly what in their study I would consider to be perhaps not entirely accurate. And that's the political way of saying إنه في شيء غلط.
شوف, I'd rather we don't get into this now, because I think since the topic is why should Jordan push to become a regional crypto hub and what can be done to achieve that, I'd like to get right into it. And maybe start it off by asking or discussing why would Jordan want to regulate blockchain-enabled solutions and cryptocurrencies to begin with. يعني ليش الأردن ليش لمصلحة الأردن كبلد كشعب كريجنال بريزنس إنه إحنا نقول لا بدناش نوقف التعامل بالكريبتوكرنسيز, and instead we want to adopt it, encourage it and regulate it. Why? يعني I think it would be a waste of time if the first thing we discuss isn't economic.
It's all down, ultimately.
It's all about the Benjamins.
It's all about the Benjamins. Of course, there's a myriad of economic advantages on a socio-economic level and on a national level to the adoption of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies.
طب خلينا ندخل الموضوع من طابق اليوم. عندنا investors بالأردن and we have a lot of retail that's buying into cryptocurrencies, investing into
and this
blockchain.
Is today with the ban actually being in effect.
Yes.
I can't use the money in my bank account to go onto a cryptocurrency retailer, let's call them that, because we don't want to go into
So you can't buy through Visa credit card online. ما بتقدر تحول من بنك أردني لاكسشينج برا عشان تشتري كريبتو.
البنوك عنا عم تمشي حسب التعميم اللي صدر من البنك المركزي بأنه هم ما يتيحوا أو يسهلوا هاي المعاملات.
بس بتقدر ألاقي حدا عنده بيتكوين أروح أعطيه كاش وأخذ وهو ببعث لي البيتكوين.
Exactly.
صح؟ Or regardless what crypto I'm
They
buying.
they took us underground, which is the wild west scenario that you discussed.
طب, interestingly, this has been happening since 2014. first time I bought Bitcoin was 2014-15 and I bought it peer-to-peer in Jordan. كمان شغلة عم نشوفها عم بتصير إنه كتير ناس عم بيبيعوا سيارات في معارض سيارات that are accepting Bitcoin for payment. There's a dentist, believe it or not. في ناس عم باخدوا خلوات المحلات. وبدناش حتى نروح الأعمال الغربية، خلينا نشرق شوي الوحدات وسط البلد. بتقدر تلاقي ناس عم باخدوا خلوات بالبيتكوين. So the industry is flourishing, let's say, or it's being adopted at least. People are taking it seriously. Private money supply is being used to exchange value in Jordan right now. The reason I wanted to make this introduction is to establish the fact that it is happening on a high level investment on retail على مستوى الريتيل انه they're buying into cryptocurrencies etc.
طب ليه ما تخليهم
يعملوا هيك؟ Why don't we stop the money that's عم تطلع من البلد ونحكي للناس لا احنا عندنا regulated، بدل ما انت تستثمر ب Binance أو بكراكن. Kraken recently issued Kraken shares equity. بدل ما أنت تطلع مصرياتك من البلد، ليه ما تخليهم جوا البلد؟ ليه الرأس المال الأردني نخليه يطلع من البلد؟ Something that we can directly relate to is the spot exchange we're working on. We're in talks with multiple Jordanian investors. هذا رأس مال أردني موجود بالدولار وبالدينار ببنوك أردنية. طب احنا الاكسشينج اليوم حيكلفنا something in the region of $5 million. حيتركوا البانكينج سيستم الاردني ويطلعوا على مالطا. 1.5 million of these is performance bond and legal and licensing fees، صح؟
Yeah, you're right.
احنا كبلد اولى براس مالنا واولى بالفيز اللي راح تندفع واولى بالعائدات اللي راح تصير على الشغل الاكسشينج اللي راح يصير.
يعني هلا انا لو بدي افتح اي other business مش كريبتو، بدي افتح ريتيل بزنس in a traditional field، بروح بالاردن هلا هون في قانون وفي تعليمات بتنظم هذا التعامل، وبروح بفتح شركه وبحط الراس المال هون، او I create the job opportunities here وبحرك السوق.
Exactly, job opportunities. It's something I want to talk about.
There's huge potential for businesses that start here in this field, which is nascent and which is booming all at once, to create job opportunities and to create a whole new skill set level amongst young people who will be getting in on it early and playing a huge role in advancing this industry forward. يعني developers, engineers, people who are related in every other industry.
So you reduce brain drain.
بالضبط، بيروحوا برا كلهم.
وبتحفز الناس to innovate.
100%.
You reduce the outflow of Jordanian capital to other countries.
Absolutely.
طيب in terms of government revenue, since we touched on fees and licensing, etc. What do you think regulating crypto and blockchain, how can it benefit the government in terms of revenue?
If you assess this industry as you would assess any other industry, as the government would assess any other industry that it wishes to regulate within the pre-existing framework, you would see that there is so much potential in revenues to the governments just from the process of allowing people to operate within a government framework.
يعني لا نبسط الموضوع شوي. لو أنا مستثمر ببيتكوين
حلو
وشريته على $10,000
حلو
and right now it's $44,000 بعته ربحت 34,000. الكيس اللي احنا فيه هلا ايش بصير بالدخل؟ انا عملت $24,000 in profit.
لو مسموح لك to declare.
No, right now what happens? Am I taxed?
Well, you should be. Yes, you should be, but because they're not in your bank account in Jordan here, it's very hard for the tax.
There's no way to trace it since it's unregulated.
أنا وياك ممكن نكون هبايل نروح نحاول نحكي للدولة literally نحاول نروح نحكي للدولة نقول لهم والله.
اسمع ما بديش hypotheticals. I want to know right now.
They're never gonna know.
They're never going
They're
to
never
know.
gonna know, and the tax revenue is never going to be.
وهيك راح عليهم capital gains.
Yes.
Income tax.
ولو كان في شركة هون مسجلة قدمت لك هاي الخدمة راح تدفع ضرائب أخرى هي كمان.
احنا كمان شوي I want to get into how regulation would stop this tax evasion or avoidance.
Yeah, because it's huge.
هي
لحالها بحر.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. Definitely.
Not just in crypto.
طب VAT احكي لنا عن VAT.
So right now, if you're a service provider, الدولة here has certain standards and regulations in the tax code for how they define commercial goods and services. And they have a tax treatment, value-added tax, which is a special tax. Now, as a lawyer, for example, let's not use the lawyer case because it's kind of murky. As a consultant, let's say, services that I offer are taxable.
Taxable, definitely. وإحنا عشان نفتح exchange بمالطا, how many different entities do we have to hire?
Oh, you have to hire lawyers and you have to hire a
Consultants.
consultancy firm that's going to establish your...
A custodian.
A custodian, your governance framework. We'll talk about governance.
And all these are services that we pay VAT on. So
بالضبط. We're going to pay VAT to the government of Malta because we're paying these service providers for this service.
definitely.
So they're going to pay income tax and there's VAT.
The fees and licensing, I think fees are and licensing is a big one, especially that احنا بجوز we narrowed the scope because we gave the exchange example, but enabling regulating blockchain enabled solutions does not limit you to exchanges. عندك securitization platforms, securitization and tokenization platforms, عندك blockchain platforms and architecture, عندك fintech and blockchain, DeFi, decentralized finance is a huge deal in crypto right now. So كل هدول الأشياء نقدر to regulate them, ناخذ منهم fees and licensing, صح؟
Absolutely. Plus, on top of that, if you allow people to utilize this kind of technology within a regulated framework, they could start applying. So right now, there is a startup ecosystem in Jordan, and we have entrepreneurship. After all, this country used to be referred to, and still is by some people, including you and I, as the Silicon Valley of the Middle East.
اسمع خلينا قبل ما تحكي هاي البوينت, I think I know where you're going with this, but before we get into that, احنا حكينا كل هذه ال revenues the government can't benefit from right now.
Yeah.
And I think an example we can relate to personally again is اكتتابي, our equity crowdfunding platform. عملناها بال 2014. It had a very innovative model from a business model and a legal structure perspective. It's the gold standard of the industry right now, the structure we had. لما بلشناها بال 2014 we were forced to نسكر الشركة لأنه بالأردن it wasn't regulated. Right now crowdfunding is a $30 billion industry. We're talking tens of millions back then. The same thing is happening in crypto. Crypto was a $300-400 billion industry back in
2013.
2019. And now we're upwards of $1 trillion. So we're missing out on exponential gains that are only forecasted to keep increasing in the future.
Absolutely. It's not going.
فهذا الريفينيو اللي عم نحكي عنه لساته عم بيكبر وحيضل يكبر وحيضل يطلع. Socially, Masri, what would regulating crypto mean socially to the banking system, for example? Let's start with the banking system. Keep in mind, if we regulate crypto, you can have CBDCs or one blockchain that currencies in use can operate on. So what do you think about interoperability between banks?
The possibilities are endless. Right now, we started with this, we mentioned it a little while ago. قديش أنا وياك بنبعت لبعض مصاري وناخذ مصاري من بعض using the banking app.
But that's only possible or practical because we use the same bank.
Exactly. But what if you and I didn't use the same bank?
You actually had to open your Ittihad
so
account
that you and I can make things easier.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Me and me. So the possibilities there again are endless, and it opens up. And this is a push. And it opens up the possibilities to multiples and multiples of people.
Practically, how would it look like if banks were interoperable?
Wow, imagine.
خلينا نبلش على مستوى الريتيل. بأي بنك أنت بتكون click of a button the same way I use my online banking right now, regardless what tech it's built on. the user experience remains unchanged. You won't need underlying blockchain knowledge to be able to operate the
user
transfer.
interface للlayman user
بالضبط. It's
عادي.
exactly the same.
حساب اكونت نمبر اللي هو الببليك ادرس بيكون مثلا لاحمد، بفتح عليه بدي
بودي لك مصاري and
نعم.
regardless what bank you're on.
بوصلك
Exactly, you get
Just
them right away.
seamlessly.
Imagine for trade what it means. Instant transfer of money, lower costs. Imagine what it means for للبنوك interbank transfers. Instant, first of all, again we're talking
lower cost.
trade money, bigger amounts, lower cost, instant. It's essentially a real-time gross settlement system.
Lower cost is something that you and I are referring to as lower cost as if it's simple, but lower cost is مش انه والله شوي عم نقلل الكوست،
لا
انه الترانزاكشن كوست اقل.
I wish I had a figure, but these figures are lacking.
They're hard because no one's sandboxing it in any of the commercial
Definitely.
banks. لأنه البنك المركزي هلا مش عاطيهم this capability right now. But if they sandboxed it and they tried it out, they'll notice that
cost savings are going to be insane
huge,
just on that.
huge.
Definitely.
Exactly.
قبل شوي كنت عم تحكي لي إذا رجعنا 15 20 10 10 to 20 years back. احنا we can't deny that the startup ecosystem is happening and it's been growing in the region. When I say region, I mean MENA and GCC. But we also can't deny that Jordan helped ignite this flourishing ecosystem.
I think we did. I'm again biased by nationality, but I tend to take also an objective look and look at the facts.
Even if you're biased, 10, 20 years ago, Jordan was the Silicon Valley of
Exactly.
MENA GCC.
The entrepreneurs
I think we
were
can
here.
agree on that.
Absolutely.
صح؟
Absolutely, yes. And still are, to a
And
large extent.
still are.
100%.
يعني أنا I disagree. I think Dubai is the Silicon Valley of our region right now.
Yeah.
I think we're far from it actually.
There's an argument for that because the market in Dubai is, regulatorily speaking, very conducive. Dubai is definitely now more attractive to initiatives and startups. Some to start and some to perhaps migrate من هون لهناك عشان بيدوروا على الانفايرمنت اللي بيشجع او احنا عندنا environment بيشجع but let's just say
هناك
right
مشجع أكتر.
Yes.
Right now
For myriad
الأردن
reasons.
كانت 20 years ago we were the Silicon Valley of the region. Right now Dubai has taken over, and you know what? I think there's a big gap. We've been playing catch up for a while, but the thing with tech is by nature of Moore's law, and Moore's law says that tech grows exponentially. So the thing is we've been playing catch up, but
We can
every
leapfrog.
year on year the gap between us and Dubai, for example, has been widening. It's been getting wider significantly. And المشكلة بالموضوع إنه إحنا we're taking steps forward, but for every step we take, they take 3. If we take 2 steps, they take 9. We take 3 steps, they take 20 steps.
That's true.
And it's the nature of how tech and innovation
Because more and
grows.
more initiatives like very I don't want to just say innovative but disruptive innovations and startups are taking place and taking foot there. With every new one the gap widens.
Exactly.
And then more crop up in its wake.
Exactly.
بس احنا عندنا راس مال بالentrepreneurs لسه عن هون.
لا عنا definitely.
So we
definitely
can
عنا.
still innovate but give
هلا
people a
أنا
reason to
what
stay.
I think personally is that blockchain gave us a golden chance to negate this gap. We're on the verge of a new technological revolution, and I think we're on the verge of finance
I like
2.0,
that.
and it renders everything إجا قبلها obsolete. Blockchain tech renders a lot of the status quo in a lot of industries obsolete. So I think we can negate this entire gap, take advantage of being first movers, regulate blockchain, regulate cryptocurrency, and become a hub for the region, and later down the line regain your status as the Silicon Valley of the region. The thing is, this gap that we talked about in terms of tech innovation, it keeps widening, but it's no longer significant. It's not, the gap will be no longer there. We can just negate the entire thing وبنقدر ننط لبلوكتشين regulation.
We can leapfrog it.
We can leapfrog it.
Absolutely.
That's a word I was
and
looking for.
you know what? Now's the time, because there's the way that you do that now while reaping the current rewards and benefits. If you regulate it and open it up right now, في هلا immediately فورا opportunities that you can reap, as well as lay the roadmap and the foundation for further innovation and improvement. وهم, by the way, I say هم.
Dubai.
I'm talking about Dubai,
Emirates.
the GCC, really. And in the Emirates, it's kind of, some places it's sandboxed. ADGM, the IFC have, as regulators, have their little sandbox initiatives.
هم بلشوا قبلنا بلشوا.
The Central Bank of Bahrain has licensed the cryptocurrency exchange, and they've been licensed for 2.5 years now.
But once again, a lot of the talent we're seeing in the Emirates is also Jordanian. A lot of the
Really?
collaborations between government and the
Exactly,
private sector, which I believe is absolutely essential to regulate a new tech like that. Because again, we're talking about misinformation being the biggest barrier to regulating or adopting any innovative technology or disruptive tech. A lot of the people who are making this happen in the Emirates are actually Jordanian.
Yep.
لا احنا أولى.
صح بالضبط.
أنا بلدي أولى.
نطبق هون وبعدين نروح
وبعدين نفرجيهم كيف بتطبق.
بالضبط.
Let's be a framework. Let's have a regulatory framework that other people can follow in regulating their economy.
Absolutely.
I love that, honestly. طيب, since we were talking about social benefits, what about banking the unbanked?
You touched
Or
on a
geographically unbanked?
nerve. You touched on a nerve. قد إيه عنا, this is a theme in Jordan. For anyone who knows, you know, and for anyone who doesn't know, it's a thing right now in Jordan. We take this very seriously. You can't have a world where so much depends on having an ability to utilize digital money and digital money services.
هلا the thing is, it's not only convenience. أنا as a regulator, as a دائرة ضريبة, as البنك المركزي, مش بس بدي أسهل. Okay, yeah, it's great that I'm making your life better and making it more convenient and making the use of money and exchange of value easier. But the main issue I would have as a regulator or anybody that provides oversight is if you're not bankable, ما عندي لك credit history, ما بعرف وين المصاري عم بتروح, ما عندي طريقة أقدر فيها إني أعرف are you paying your taxes?
Exactly. مصاري بجيبتي ما حد شايفها.
It's cash. It's cash. And you know, interestingly, since you bring cash up in the context of tax avoidance, 20% of cash is used for illicit activities, whereby Bitcoin, ما بعرف crypto بس Bitcoin, خلينا نحكي Bitcoin, it's 1% according to the study in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah.
By the way, since you touched on illicit activities, I consider that because, for example, one of the reasons that people are worried, at least opponents of opening up discussion on regulation of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, say that, oh no, it can be used for illicit activities, it's untraceable. It's on a regulatory standpoint, no, it's a nightmare in terms of governance and AML and anti-arming and anti-terrorism financing regulations. البنوك are going to have a nightmare.
It's quite the opposite.
It's quite the opposite. Literally,
It's literally the opposite.
I can list for hours how the frameworks would be supercharged and improved, how
صح.
tracking, tracing, and even preventing illicit use cases of finances would be just transformed by the adoption of blockchain and DLT technology.
طب, one last thing on the social side before we move on to something else. Elections.
تخيل. Yeah, by the way, good. It's good that you mentioned that. There was the CEO of a blockchain company called GoChain. Remember him?
Jason Decker.
Jason Decker. We worked with Jason Decker and GoChain when we were working on Pucamex, and we had an agreement with them and a memorandum of understanding on technology development. And for the whole time that we were working with GoChain, Jason Decker was in Afghanistan.
What
and
was he doing in Afghanistan?
He would call me, oh, I'm sorry, Mohammad. He'd be in his hotel in the green zone. Ahmad, I'm sorry, connection is really bad here, but I'm trying to work on a framework with the Afghan government in order to move their elections onto the blockchain, the Go chain technology.
So that it's more transparent, more secure, immutable,
It's
and
immutable.
trustless.
Exactly. No one would worry about counting ballots, double ballots,
Which is an
tampering.
issue بالأردن.
Absolutely. It's
يعني
a huge problem.
انتخابات النيابة
هلا
has
كنا فيهم
always
وقديش
been
كان
an
في
issue.
ويعني هيهم القضايا لساتهم شغاله امام القضاء هلا على
Even
نتائج
identity on the blockchain is
Exactly.
you can't ما بتقدر
You
تضحك
can't-
عليه.
Exactly.
ما بتقدر تضحك عليه.
Exactly.
طيب I want to talk more about CBDCs. ايش CBDCs?
Central bank digital currencies.
And in this context, it's basically your national currency بحالتنا الدينار الأردني. Same dinar, it's still digital like it is on online banking apps. But the difference is that it's built on blockchain tech.
Absolutely. It's the future.
Again, there's no denying that money is increasingly digital. بالأردن included. على فكرة, since we mentioned the كتابي, back in 2014, I now think it's very interesting. Back in 2013, we had to innovate scratch cards, prepaid scratch cards, عشان literally ما حدا كان عنده credit card بيقدر يدفع فيه online. It wasn't a thing. Now every single debit card from every single Jordanian bank works online by default.
Absolutely.
It's not even a plus.
حدد
It's
السقف
standard.
او شغله for online وتفيه for online whatever safeguard you like, but they all work because everyone needs one.
يعني بجوز احنا البوينت اللي عم نحاول نعملها انه money is increasingly digital. I don't think anyone can disagree with
No
that
one
fact.
disputes that.
Did you know a few days ago the International Bank for Settlements issued some guidance and considerations for CBDCs. They queried some 65 national and regional central banks. 86% of the queried banks responded saying that we are working on some form of CBDC. We do have CBDC tech up and running, or we have it running in a sandbox environment.
Exactly, and we should be too. And
China is actually running a live version of its
China is
digital yuan.
the digital yuan, the renminbi that's digital right now is being not just adopted, it's being pushed and peddled almost. بيعملوا مهرجانات بالصين هلا where you can go and use your traditional cash.
No, you can't use cash. You can only use digital yuan. Oh yeah, you can swap
and
it.
with an incentive. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you give them 10 digital, you get back 12, for example. I don't know exactly how much, but there's incentives to get you to move digital, and they set up your wallet for you and everything.
The Bahamas, الساند دولار بالبهاما, which is the Bahamian central bank's currency is built on blockchain tech. It's really cool because in the Bahamas they have one big island وبعدين عندهم islands صغار حواليهم. المشكلة إنه تخيل أنت عايش على واحد من الislands الصغار فيه 5,000, 10,000 population. It doesn't make sense for a bank to open a branch there. So it used to, what would you do when you need to withdraw $10 أو 100 دينار أو راتبك؟ بدك تاخد fucking canoe تروح فيها على الأوشن all the way to the main island, withdraw your money, canoe back, get eaten by sharks and shit,
and then
just so you can withdraw your money.
كلفتك أكتر.
Blockchain, all you need, your phone, a wallet. You have a wallet on your phone, it's an application, and you're good to go.
You don't need to make withdrawals.
So for them, that in itself was reason enough عشان CBDC تعمل.
Every country has its own use cases, and the use cases that apply to every country apply to every other country.
Definitely.
That's the thing, that's the beauty of it.
طب أنا كبنك مركزي أردني، أنا البنك المركزي الأردني هلا، ليش؟ Why would I opt for CBDCs? What are your thoughts on that?
I have many.
I want you to start with traceability and transparency because it's something you hit on a while back.
There's several. There's several advantages to a central bank adopting.
I can most definitely name a few. Yeah. Go ahead.
Exactly. But just on the pure fact, let's not talk about the more efficient system and the monetary advantages and the cost-saving advantages. Just in terms of the legal requirements, the transparency and the immutability that a CBDC would offer.
طيب احنا بنحكي transparency وبنحكي traceability.
حلو.
صح؟
حلو.
بس انا كبنك مركزي اوكي شو يعني transparent؟ تريسبل اكثر.
هو البنك المركزي اللي بيعرف عليك. البنك المركزي
لا أنا I want the viewers to understand what we're saying
Okay.
as well, because transparency, traceability doesn't mean much.
I understand.
For
I
the
understand
layman,
what
it
you
doesn't
mean.
mean much.
So right now, the central bank has a very comprehensive set of rules and regulations that all commercial banks in Jordan must abide by.
بصير نعملها بطريقة example. أنا اليوم عامل مياومة بندفع لي كل شهر بحصل لي 2000 دينار.
حلو.
I'm paid in cash.
100%.
قد ايه ضريبتي عليهم؟
نعم.
لا قد ايه نسبة ضريبتي عليهم إذا بدي أدفع ضريبة؟
لا أنت كفرد مكلف أو فرد individual ضريبة الدخل عليك بعد إعفائك الشخصي 9000 دينار 5% على أول 5000 5% على ثاني 5000.
Okay, so for simplicity let's call it 10%.
Let's call it 10%.
Let's call it 10%
Sure,
for simplicity.
Sure.
So I technically owe the government something in the region of 200 GDs every month.
Yes.
عم بدفعهم؟
لا بتندفع لك كاش أنت ما حد شايفك.
ما حد شايفك.
Nope.
طب أخذت مصاري ودفعتهم لواحد شريت فيهم سلاح مش مرخص.
مين داري عنك؟
مين داري عنه؟
حد شايف.
It's cash. So when we say transparency, traceable أو أخذتهم وما دفعت ضريبة كمان. Traceability, transparency.
Yes.
First of all, with the advent of NFTs and non-fungible tokens, أنا كبنك مركزي بقدر تتريس كل حدا قد عم بدخله. It's transparent. I can see مش بس إمتى عم بدخلك وقديش عم بدخلك، إمتى كمان بالضبط عم بنزل راتبك، وبقدر أحدد 30% من راتبك is color coded red. This can only be used to pay government fees.
أو إنه
Income tax.
خليه هي الاقتطاع عبارة عن color coding. There's many ways to do it.
There's many ways to do it.
بالضبط.
بقدر أعمل dark red هاد automatically بنزل income tax.
بالضبط. هي التحصيل done.
طيب عامل المياومة بهاي الحالة بتأثر؟
لا ما بتأثر.
It's the same as cash.
بالعكس.
It's just sent on his phone.
Exactly.
صح؟
Exactly.
Or even if تحكي لي بالأردن الناس ما بيعرفوا يدفعوا بالدكان على تليفونهم, you can put this blockchain enabled central bank digital currency on plastic.
Yes, you can.
على كرت.
Yes,
وبيقدر يدخل ويدفع بنفس الطريقة اللي عادة بدفع فيها صح؟
بالضبط.
So
بالضبط.
that's
The
also
barrier to
cool.
entry is so low. طب أنا أعطيك مثال قريب بس أبسط بس كتير مؤثر. هلا أنت إذا عندك 10 دنانير there's two possibilities to this scenario. 10 دنانير ممزوعة. إيش لازم تروح تعمل فيها؟
Honestly, I take it to my bank.
Okay.
Personally.
You or your bank has to take this 10 GD to the central bank and give it to them so that they can issue a replacement.
So that's something else you mentioned, by the way. I just thought about this.
Yeah.
There's a cost for maintaining cash.
Exactly. And there's counterfeiting.
And there's counterfeiting.
هاي كبير.
You can't counterfeit on the
counterfeit
blockchain.
CBDC.
إذا أنا بدي to reduce the money supply, تك press of a button.
بس.
ما في cost of cash
The
maintenance.
possibilities for CBDC
Yeah,
adoption
definitely.
are endless.
برضو كنا عم نحكي على موضوع ال NFTs and color coding your راتب. إيش لو بعمل color coding لجزء من راتبك أصفر and this you can only use to pay فاتورة الكهرباء, فاتورة المي, ضريبة مثقفات.
And the interlinking
See where I'm going with this?
is endless.
Definitely.
The interlinking is endless. And at the same time, it's safer. Well, it's much safer. Right now, if I go to the bank على حسابي الشخصي وبدي أحول 6000 دينار. ال 6000 دينار هدول مع إنه arguably, and I'm sure every member of the banking industry and every member of the monetary industry will tell me, no, it's 10,000, but really it's 5. And really sometimes it's 1,000 or sometimes it's much less. There's a procedure for making sure what the source of the funds is, who you're sending them to, the identification, the KYC, the know your client requirements are very stringent so that you're making sure that everything is properly accounted for, everything's properly recorded, and no illicit activities are being done. And if you're doing that right now in such a tedious manner, the burden is on the banks. You've right now البنك المركزي
money is administered. Commercial banks have a monopoly on money markets.
Yes, but the thing is, in terms of a regulatory standpoint, البنك المركزي عليه إنه يحط التعليمات والأونس for تطبيق تعليمات
البنك المركزي بيشرع والبنك
والرقابة البنك العادي البنك التجاري هو اللي راح ينفذ. What if you take this entire it's hard for commercial banks يتابعوا ورا كل زباينهم عشان الامتثال for compliance purposes عشان ياخذوا المعلومات هاي ويخلوها عندهم أو يعطوها للبنك المركزي. If they don't do, العميل ممكن ما يعطيهم المعلومة الصحيحة.
I agree with
because
that.
But what if it's
and this can all be bypass. This can all be done more efficiently, more securely on a blockchain-enabled currency.
Absolutely.
Let alone هلا الconvenience. Obviously, we can keep arguing لبعد 100 سنة ليش بيتكوين منيح أو مش منيح. But if you're an investor, I come to you بقول لك بدي إياك تستثمر $1,000,000 بالمشروع تاعي. بس ايش اول شيء رح تسالني اياه؟ how much money do you make؟ صح؟ What if I tell you I don't make money? Then we can get into the argument of whether you agree with my business model and whether you think it's a bad idea or not.
Absolutely.
If I come to you بقول لك بدي $1,000,000 تستثمره بمشروعي، اول سنه of operation خسرت 10,000، ثاني سنه عملت 100,000، ثالث سنه عملت 300,000، رابع سنه عملت مليون، وخامس سنه I'm on course or on track to make 5 million JDs in net profit.
Take my money.
Even if you disagree with the concept.
Absolutely, take my
صح؟
money. The trend is undeniable. You are on the rise.
Success and facts are undeniable. It is futile to deny the convenience of Bitcoin, of cryptocurrencies, of stable coins, of
both
regardless what it is.
Both current opportunities and future potential.
Definitely. So the point I'm trying to make, أنا بنك مركزي بشوف my retail sector and commercial sector, whether we like it or not, are adopting cryptocurrencies because of their ease of use. But let me compete with this private money supply that's being used right under my noses, despite me telling people I basically don't want you to use it.
Plus, the whole world's doing it.
It's
not just the developed world anymore that's doing it. From the largest and most developed and
شوف
most complex.
أنا personally, for me, everyone's doing it is not a good reason to do anything.
I think.
بس عشان هي and I'd rather not be a sheep.
No, this is not being a sheep. In this particular case, it's
yeah, بس احنا عشان هيك عم نحكي عن البنفيتس قاعدين. عشان هيك بدي احكي عن the actual benefits. ما بديش احكي كل حدا عم بيعمله فانا بدي اعمله. بس
I just think that if everyone's doing something or moving in a direction and you stubbornly get left behind because you're turning a blind eye or because you're worried,
I'm more likely to stubbornly take the other way.
Yeah, but you lose the opportunity to lead in that field.
Definitely, yeah, of course. You can't argue with that. I agree. Jokes aside, I definitely agree. طيب آخر شغلة بدي أحكي فيها إذا صار في CBDC. Imagine the real-time gross settlement system you would have
in
Jordan.
It's absolutely beautiful.
How about we look 3-5 years down the line. الدولار تاعك صار digital.
Yeah.
واليورو صار digital.
And the frameworks for the digital dollar are there. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's much sooner than we think.
Absolutely.
Regulations galore.
Yeah.
Anyways, طيب رحنا 5 سنين لقدام. CBDCs are now a thing. خلينا نحكي بإيكونومي كتير بسيطة، بس في اليورو وبس في الدولار وبس في الدينار.
حلو.
الدولار واليورو صار digital, built on blockchain. DeFi, obviously, I don't want to say it's now a thing because it's
a thing.
Now a thing. It's a market in the hundreds of billions now. Yani.
Absolutely.
So DeFi is being used for trade finance. It's being used by governments to issue debt. It's being used to form decentralized exchanges. It's being formed so that CBDCs can be interest bearing.
This is something
that
you touched on قبل شوي, which is settlement yields. The studies have all shown.
لا أنا حكيت real time gross settlement system, as in اليوم أنا بعت لك حوالي 100,000 دينار مشتريات بضاعة فرضا.
قد ايه رح تكلف على ما توصلك وقد ايه بصرف؟
مش قد ايه رح تكلف. What happens is my bank بودي للبنك المركزي هاي المصاري. البنك المركزي credits the account with the beneficiary's bank.
Absolutely.
And then your bank account is credited. It's done periodically.
Yes.
عشان هيك ما بصير نفس الثانية. هيك لما نحكي interoperability.
Yes.
With a real-time gross settlement system, it's done real-time. By definition,
instant.
blockchain is real-time. But I want to circle back and كنا عم نحكي عن
the hypothetical
in a hypothetical economy of dollar digital, euro digital, دينارك لسه زي ما هو, trade finance and DeFi services, which I listed previously are now being administered. Don't you think two main considerations? First of all, what would this do to your banking system? Would it render it obsolete? What would happen to trade? كيف بدي أصير أستورد؟ إذا كل شيء صار بلوكتشين، دينار كيف بدي أوديه دولار؟ كيف بده يصير عندي دولار؟ Who will exchange dinars? Okay, you can exchange dinar to dollar and then go to the States, deposit it and get paid in digital currencies. Will the regulations there allow it to begin with? So will it make your banking system obsolete? Another thing, the second thing would be احنا اليوم بالبنك المركزي في foreign exchange reserves that are not owned by Jordan. They are deposited mainly by Saudi, the Eurozone and the States. والودائع هدول خلينا احنا بمثالنا خلينا نحكي انهم محطوطين باليورو وبالدولار. طب if we don't have the tech to support the tech that in our scenario all the other world currencies are built on, can we still accept these deposits?
How? If we don't have the tech, we can't.
كيف?
We can't.
You can't do it, can you?
And this touches on the risk is real. So you're touching on the risk of being left behind, which is real now. It's a real risk. We're not talking about whether or not we should be looking at this because of only the gains. We're talking about opportunity cost and risk.
Definitely.
Because we will be left behind and that has consequences for us. So يا إما بنستفيد من هلا على البكير يا إما راح ناكل.
طب بهيك حالة أنا كمان كبنك مركزي بديش بس أفكر بالadvantages. I want to think of the disadvantages. A very big theme in regulation, and in fact احنا قلنا من 2016 موجود التك عشان تقدر تعمل CBDC. بس what's coming in your way, your banking and financial systems as we know them today form the pillars of your economy. It's one of the biggest industries out there by market cap, by revenue, by lobbying, taxation, etc. So إذا أنا بعمل CBDC and I turn entirely cashless, my concern as bank markazi, how would I not compete and disintermediate the commercial banks, which are a pillar to me, out of the market? And this is a very big theme on regulation. What are your thoughts on that?
It is, and from what I can see and my personal belief is that the banks will need to evolve, but they will not become any less integral to the financial system in Jordan or in the world.
شوف I was personally under the opinion a few months ago that banks are going to cease being a thing. Right now, with a new regulation that's taking place, this is a few days old by the way, the focus of the regulation, and apparently احنا قلنا من 2016 موجودة هاي التك, why they haven't applied it yet is because they're afraid to disintermediate the banks. But now the regulatory frameworks are moving in different directions. عم بيحكوا اوكي انا بنك بدي اطلع CBDC بس it can only be administered through a bank. يعني انا معي 10,000 دينار بدي افتح حساب او wallet in the context of blockchain, بس بقدر حدا عنده financial license to issue a wallet that's compatible with my blockchain. So it's a permissioned blockchain.
They would become a new type. Their role would evolve into a new form of custody services provider, a depository institution.
Technically it's but banks are depository institutions.
Their role
بس حدا عنده financial license بقدر يعمل DeFi solution. This is what we mean when we say regulated. Regulated مش يعني Wild West. Regulated يعني أنت consider the risks, consider the advantages. Okay, I decide to do it. I want to make use of all the advantages that this new tech enables me to do. At the same time, أنا عندي consideration 1 2 3 possible disadvantages 1 2 3 بحط تشريعات عشان تضمن أنا أستفيد كبلد من كل الأشياء اللي حكيناها, whether it's economic, socially, government revenue, etc. بس not to have any of the drawbacks from what it comes with.
It's very, very, very prudent that you mentioned the role of the banks, because now there's also a very strong consideration of why would the banks currently in their current form relinquish their current existing commercial assets, prospects, businesses. Right, there's a huge lending market and investment market.
هلا شوف, why as a bank I would do that? Because if banks, I believe, if commercial banks also do not. Anna, there's an article I wrote. I don't know if you read it. It's
I read it, of course.
about the ice
Of course
picking
I
industry.
read it, yeah.
So back in the 30s, the way people made ice was they traveled to the South Pole, North Pole, wherever there's icebergs. They pick the ice, بحطوه بvessels وبرجعوا فيه على أمريكا. And then imagine what the advent of the commercial freezer did to them. And this is what I think will happen to banks, what DeFi will do to banks if banks do not adopt this.
Exactly.
Tech.
And the key word is if banks do not.
Have you ever
adopt
used a DeFi solution?
tech. I have, yeah.
أنا استعملت DeFi solution in the terms of swap platforms. So I would deposit my cryptocurrency tokens and make money on it. I also deposited Bitcoin in a few DeFi solutions, and I'm making 6-10% a year.
Beautiful.
Is this more or less than what I'm being paid for depositing my money in an inflationary currency in the dollar or the JD?
It's better.
Yeah?
It's a more enticing rate. It's a better
Exactly.
return on your investment.
And this is enabled by DeFi, by decentralized finance.
Exactly.
هاي الأشياء مش رح تصير، هاي الأشياء عم بتصير.
2 years ago it was 12%.
And we need to take advantage of it. The only way to do it would be by regulating
Regulation,
it.
طبعاً.
انت اليوم عندك the Wild West. انا بديش يكون the Wild West. عندك برين درين بدي اخلص منه. عندك مصاري عم تطلع من البلد لاستثمارات برا البلد بكريبتو. عندك taxation عم بيروح عليك from capital gains, income taxes, etc. Mining. إذا بفتح mining, I can even apply duty to mining equipment. I can make use of the solar power. So it opens up a lot of doors. And to me, I think the most important thing it achieves is that we can negate a tech and disruption and innovation gap that's been widening for the past 10 years.
Absolutely. It will so positively affect every aspect of our society and our economy and our GDP. It's ridiculous. وكل العوامل اللي انت بتقدر تسويها ايجابيه، وبتقدر انت تعالج الجوانب اللي هي صعبه، اللي هل الناس بيحكوا عنها سلبيات. هي مش سلبيات، هي صعوبات.
100%.
عالجها يا عمي، اعمل. And the onus is not only on the official and regulatory bodies اللي
No, اصلا I don't think they can do it without collaboration مع القطاع الخاص تاعك.
انا برايي
ما بزبط.
البنوك هم لازم يكونوا السباقين في التعاون او الدفشه التعاونيه مع.
شوف أنا I think banks still have a lack of know-how and experience in crypto, primarily because it was
They were
silly
told not to look
a few
at
years ago. Yeah.
They were told not to look at it.
They were told not to look at
By
it,
both
but
private
also
interests
مصري
and
احنا
government.
يعني you're one of the oldest people who I know have been in blockchain the longest. And not in a million years did I think we were going to get to this point so quick. I personally did not take it seriously back then as much as I do now.
I'm more guilty
So
of it than
مش
you.
مظلومين هم انه
لا
هاد بس that's the case. And I think you should, the government or the central bank أو الهيئة التشريعية أو أي حدا should collaborate with the private sector زيي وزيك who have been in the industry for a while, who have some form of official certification in the field, who have been there and done that in launching crypto tokens, in launching STOs, in launching an exchange, in being in the industry right now and trying to نعمل fiat on-ramping, off-ramping services,
Exactly.
spot exchange, a consulting service. How surprising was the amount and quality and size of the clients we have been getting,
ridiculous.
and from all over the world.
Appetite.
من أمريكا عم بيجينا، من دبي عم بيجينا.
من كل محل.
من كل محل عم
أنحاء
بيجينا.
العالم بيجينا.
Members of the royal family from the Emirates.
Yeah, exactly.
We're consulting for them too.
Exactly.
So no, this is something definitely happening, and
It's a socio-economic necessity.
I think we've made our point in why should the government regulate it. بس قبل ما بلشنا قلنا عندك 3 main routes. One would be Wild West, one would be regulated, one would be outright ban it. Personally, I think history has taught us that banning it is not an option.
Turning a blind eye to
بالصين
something.
شفنا، بأمريكا شفنا, it was outright ban after outright ban after outright ban. Crypto is too proliferated,
Exactly.
too decentralized, too disintermediated for you to be able to ban it as a حكومة. So since this isn't really an option, and we should learn from the experiences of other
Absolutely.
economies. Aren't we better off regulating it than letting it be as is?
I think so. I totally believe that it's a necessity. It's not just that we're going to be better off if we choose. I think we have no choice. We really have no choice. عاجلا أم آجلا راح يجي اليوم.
Sorry, and I didn't realize Mike was so sensitive.
I'll boombox with you, man.
Okay, this is going to the bloopers.
Yeah, we edit that.
You didn't realize.
I didn't think, I really didn't think that it would be a necessity. But now I am 100% confident إنه عاجلا أم آجلا راح يجي اليوم اللي إحنا لازم نعمل فيه framework تشريعي ل everything blockchain. And if we don't have the framework right now,
We can't turn a blind eye anymore.
We can't,
Not if we want to
can't.
take advantage of
Exactly,
this. صراحة.
exactly.
طيب آخر شغلة I'd like to discuss or touch on briefly. How would you regulate? احنا بجوز حكينا شوي بالموضوع وانا because I don't come from a legal background, to me it's simpler, but to me my first step would be يا هيئة تشريعية understand the underlying tech and understand that get out of the mentality إنه بنقدر to ban Bitcoin. This has been the mentality in the leading economies in 2013, 14. It didn't work. So تعلم إيش يعني blockchain. ومش بس تعلم إيش يعني blockchain. Today, if you know how blockchain tech works and what Bitcoin is, you're still in 2011, 2012 compared to other governments. Or 2013, 14 compared to other governments. But also educate yourself on a pillar for the industry, which is smart contracts. بعدين ادخل على DeFi and then DEXs and figure out how all this works. And then the next step would definitely be tokenization, placing identities on the blockchain. So really understand مش ايش كان عم بيصير قبل 4 سنين. This is not enough anymore for regulatory bodies. وبديش انا to burden them with ايش رح يصير. بس ايش عم بيصير. افهم ايش عم بيصير.
Fair enough.
When you do that, you can understand the applications that are happening and the future applications, but more importantly, the implications. And if you understand both of the applications and implications, you can make proper considerations. زي ما حكيت أنا قبل شوي, you can understand what the advantages are, how you can take advantage of the advantages of this new tech and the new use cases. بقدر برضو أفهم إيش ال potential drawbacks in terms of تهرب. Okay, إذا حدا معاه بيتكوين ما بقدر أعرف وين بيروح فيها. He can fund terrorism. He can do the same with cash. But let's assume he can't.
That's not let's assume.
Let's assume. Let's assume. بس أوكي, أنا إذا بشرعه بحكي للبنك أنت مش ممنوع تخليه يشتري كريبتو بيتكوين. أنت يا بنك إذا بده يشتري بيتكوين تاخذ رقم الوالد تاعته which is your bank account number, you associate it to his ID, to his address, بتعمل KYC ولا يعمل البروسيجر كامل تاعك.
وهذا شيء موجود عندنا هلا right now.
Exactly.
It's
just apply it to a different asset class.
Exactly.
Again,
exactly.
The wood and the nails and the chair
are the same things
exactly.
that have always been there.
فهاي واحدة من الكونسيدريشنز. الكونسيدريشن تاني ديفاي مش رح يصير. ديفاي عم بيصير غصبا عني. طب اليوم في ريسك انه انا احسن لي احط مصرياتي بالدولار او باي عملة تانية, اطلع من الدينار عشان because it's more convenient because I get paid better yields through decentralized finance. So اليوم الريسك تاع CBDC, اوكي CBDC بيجيب لي كتير انا advantages كبنك مركزي, بس خايف احطها عشان البنوك التجارية. Regulate it in a way, consider them.
Exactly.
Understand tech, how it works, applications, implications,
خلي القطاع المصرفي يشتغل معك.
drawbacks, regulate, take advantages of the pros and to limit as much as you can the potential drawbacks. Would you agree with that as a general approach on how to regulate
most certainly
blockchain?
Most certainly. It starts with, we're not talking about education or knowledge. We're talking about high level, extremely thorough accumulation of expertise.
Definitely.
On this subject. الجهات المعنية regulation and تنظيم and متابعة and implementation on a national level. We're talking about the government here. This is not just
Absolutely.
like we understand. No, I am an expert at this.
Become an expert.
خد من أصحاب الخبرة والاختصاص الكفاءة.
Collaborate with القطاع الخاص. We need to bridge the divide
Exactly.
between the private and public sector.
Absolutely.
And something I'd like to add on how to regulate would be برضو it's your responsibility كpublic sector or regulatory bodies إنه أفهم أنا investment market what the state of the regional market is. مش معقول أنا كفرضاً بنك مركزي أو هيئة تشريعية بالأردن to go and regulate derivative crypto trading and leverage crypto trading and DeFi solutions because people don't need it yet.
نبف لدانها.
بالضبط.
ما في داعي.
Start with the basics fiat on ramping off ramping.
بس.
مبدئيا.
بس.
KYC AML procedures.
Things will start to emerge from
Taxation.
your partners and from people.
The general point I want to make, in addition to what I mentioned on how to regulate, would be to understand the state of the market, what the market needs. زي ما بتعمل product market fit for any product that you launch. Understand the product market fit عشان وين المصاري اللي عم تطلع من هون عم بتروح، ايش عم بيستثمروا, and what your local entrepreneurs are doing عشان كمان اعرف مش بس implications واحط a good regulatory framework بس عشان احط a relevant regulatory framework that people will actually use. Because if I come انا هيئة تشريعية I regulate DeFi, it's not going to be very useful for our region. You want to regulate the things that are in demand.
You start with the right steps, and when you do it that way, watch things develop very rapidly and quickly.
Definitely,
Watch
I
the
agree.
foreign investment pour in.
Definitely.
I guarantee it.
Definitely.
I guarantee it. You take the first step with fiat on-ramp, off-ramp under a proper regulatory regime. The banks
Pouring
understand,
in,
and the ISTD, اللي هي Income and Sales Tax Department, understand the tax and procedural treatment of fiat on-ramping and off-ramping
Definitely.
within a procedural framework, and watch just that step.
Pour in.
Watch the foreign investment pour in.
Definitely, I agree with
And
that.
watch the new developments occur locally and تكمل بعدين على the more advanced levels.
We're running a bit over time, so is there anything you'd like to say to conclude? Anna, from my side, I believed I covered everything I had envisioned to.
We can talk for hours about the nitty-gritty of the technologies and the implications, but as a throwback to the original topic, which is why should Jordan become a regional?
I believe we addressed that.
We addressed it. And there's
Loud and clear.
Absolutely.
طيب, I hope we can do this
That's
next week. I'd like us to discuss whether Bitcoin can replace the US dollar as a global